meditations, they seem to get easier to go into that state the more we do them, don't they? Seem to get more out of them. Thank you, Trav. This is Trav Williams, our guest musician for today. For those of you that come here regularly, you know he normally plays the flute, but today he treated us to the piano. I didn't know he was such a multi-talented musician. And the guitar as well.
A little bit.
Anything else?
No.
No?
Kazoo. That's about it.
Kazoo? That counts. Maybe we should add the didgeridoo to your repertoire.
I don't know. After hearing Seth, I
A little intimidating, huh? And this is Michele Alexandria. She's our guest speaker today. She's come all the way up from San Diego, and she's going to be talking to us about Indigo children and her work with them and what they're about and how to recognize if you meet one and why they're special, what it is that they're here to do. And if you read our magazine that came out 4 weeks ago on the 1st of May, you also know there's an article in there that Michele wrote. So we're very pleased to have her content in there. And how much of your talk today is going to be similar to the article?
A little bit.
A little bit?
Yeah.
Okay. So before Michele takes the stage, not the mic, because I don't have the mic today. Before we transfer over to Michele, I wanted to share some ideas. Last week I was speaking to you about levels of participation. And when you are presented with a situation, an emotion, a person, some kind of consciousness around you, I encouraged you to stop and pause and recognize your level of participation in the process. Are you proactively creating the situation around you with the person? Are you in partnership with it? Are you co-creating this together? Or is the person or the situation creating it and you are being a passive participant? And if you're passive, are you willingly passive or were you unwittingly passive? And the reason that we brought that up was I had done some discovery where I was a unwittingly passive participant in some things that were going around me, that once I gained awareness that I was in this process without even realizing it, I was able to pull away. And I remind you each week the veil is thinning. As the ascension process is beginning, as we're moving out of the Piscean age and moving into the Aquarian age, the veils are thinning. Our psychic thoughts aren't getting stronger, they are getting easier to read, and so they are giving the appearance of being stronger. They've always been that strong. We are just now really recognizing what's happening with them. I'm beginning to recognize that as I think something, and I create a thought and a process, the people around me are beginning to voice what I thought. And it does warrant us to begin to have more self-government in what we're creating. Before we used to just say things, and we said, well, I didn't say it, I only thought it, and we thought that made it innocuous. And now we're beginning to understand that we need to be very careful and to be coming from the heart. Every action that we take, every thought we have, all those thoughts create emotions, which become a catalyst for more thoughts and emotions. And they can be something that expands into greatness and goodness, or they can be something that causes directions in ways that are not comfortable in a lower vibration. In the article that's coming out in July 1, the article that I write each time, opens with a quote from Nelson Mandela about it's not that our darkness we fear, but it's our greatness, and how we shrink away from that power. Maybe because we're afraid we'll do something wrong with it. Maybe because we're afraid we're not worthy of it. Or perhaps we're afraid that the tall poppy syndrome applies, that if we stand up and we're great and we're empowered, that there'll be those around us that will be jealous and resentful. And those are usually the three reasons why we stop standing in our greatness. And when you think about it, doesn't it make more sense to be wonderful and great and empowered and gentle and loving and kind, and set the example for those that don't put themselves in that kind of presence, rather than thinking, oh, we shouldn't step into that because then people will be jealous. Well, what if we help them transcend into having those emotions and those feelings by being a positive role model? It was one of the things that I struggled with, was not so much the first one, but the last two. Those were ones that I had to work through. And when I read that quote, and it's actually a long quote that he wrote, and you'll see it in the article that comes out. So after Michele is done, I'm going to touch on, she's going to talk about indigos, and we're also going to expand into rainbows and crystals and some new ones that I was told are coming through. And then I'm going to transfer over and segue that into ideas of agreement, contradiction, and neutrality, and how our thought process accesses those three areas to create our belief system and therefore our existence. So with that, thank you, Michele, for coming here.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for having me. What an honor to be here and to be able to talk about something that I have been involved with for almost 10 years, and it's something that's very near and dear to my heart, is working with indigos. So let me just ask, how many of you have heard the term or familiar with the term, so that way it kind of helps me as to if I've given you too much or too little?
I read a whole book.
Okay, so you have someone.
I went to class with Nancy Taffy.
Okay, okay, so you've got a good a good sense of what's going on with indigos. So just to sort of kind of give a background, when we're talking about the word indigo itself, we're talking about the color. And as you mentioned, Nancy Taffy is actually the person who coined the term indigo, as she is one of the key people who brought this awareness about the indigo children and now the crystal children. And this was towards the late 60s and 70s when she has this amazing God-given ability, and it's synesthesia, which is where senses cross over. And she has the ability to see color and taste shapes. And so she's done an entire study by her natural gift that she recognized that each of us has, we talk about an aura, and now each of us has, our auras can change, with our moods, but we each have a life color, a life aura. And so she started to recognize these and personality traits and characteristics that went along with these particular life colors. So as we started moving into late 60s, 70s, she started to notice a complete shift and change in color, moving into the indigo. And the indigos represent spirituality. So if you think about the third eye, what's the color of the third eye? Indigo, it's that deep, deep blue. So what this soul group, and this is really what indigos are, is they are this soul group that is ushering in the next level in human evolution. If you think about going back, the first indigo started coming in, and again, depending upon who you talk to, just after maybe the 1920s. However, there have been indigos in all generations throughout all lifetimes. I believe Joan of Arc was an indigo. Right in there. Martin Luther King, they also said that he was an indigo, and Albert Einstein. So visionaries, creative thinkers, those that step way outside the box, that are here to actually take us to a new realm, creating new paradigms. So this is what indigos really represent. And the indigos really started coming in a bulk in about, I would say, about the mid-70s and the 80s for sure, and into the 90s. And we're still getting some indigos that are still coming in now, just not as many because we're bringing in the next generation of souls. The indigos are here to break down the old systems. They're here to break down the old paradigms. So their energy, I equate it to sort of like a rumbling of an engine. They're in a go-getter mode. It's like when you meet an indigo, there's an engine running. And you could see the intensity in their eyes. And the intensity is not that they're